Hello, and welcome back to the International Careers Club podcast. This week, our guest, Brian P. Creswick, is the Director of Operations for the Aspen Institute's College Excellence Program, where he leads human capital, finance, fundraising, and management efforts. With over 2 decades of experience as an entrepreneur, business leader, and consultant, Brian has provided strategic and operational expertise to social impact organizations with global reach. He previously served as a Chief Operating Officer for an Inc. 5000 technology services company and manage venture capital initiatives focused on developing unmanned systems for public safety and national security. He also built a consulting practice that delivered enterprise transformation solutions to government, nonprofits, and Fortune 500 companies. He is also an active community leader and serves as the board of member for two nonprofits.
Welcome back to the eighth episode of the International Careers Club podcast. Today here I'm joined with Brian, one of my dad's really good friends. And today he's going to be telling us like a little bit about what he does. And even though it may not be super international, I find it important because it's a really cool story to me. Um, and I hope that like a lot of you find it as interesting as I do. So Brian, if you would just go ahead and introduce yourself and tell people a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Thanks, Parker. It's exciting to join you today and chat a little bit about my story. I'm based in Washington, D.C., so not sure where your viewers are watching from, but I've spent my whole life living on the East Coast of the United States. Washington, D.C. is a great spot. If you haven't visited, definitely encourage you to make a trip when you're able and come see what we have going on here. It's a hotbed, obviously, for U.S. political dialogue, but we have a tremendous base of commercial for-profit businesses, technology industries, and so forth. And so, yeah, so I was born and raised here in Virginia. I went to James Madison University for my undergrad degree. That's in Harrisonburg, Virginia. It's about 2 hours southwest of Washington, D.C., and came back to Northern Virginia to work and was lucky to join a company that was focused in technology consulting and was lucky to work for a senior management team who really invested in their people and mentored our growth. And I learned very early in my career how to uh, run programs and projects and do business development for programs and projects and how to make customers interested in consulting services and advisory services. And so worked with that company for about 7.5 years and then started a professional services business of my own focused in technology consulting, working with a really great business partner, a gentleman named Nick McCarter, who started the company in 2008. I joined him in 2009, and the two of us grew the business from there. So over the course of about 13, 14 years, we built a technology services and consulting business based in Washington, D.C. We had clients nationwide. We had employees nationwide. And I was fortunate to exit the business like all business owners aspire to do in 2022. And so it's a really great story. I'm excited to tell you a little bit more about it today.
So I think kind of like going beyond just the company, but a lot of kind of people that I talk to, especially being like in my final year of high school, there's just a lot of talk about like college. What are you doing? Where are you going? And I found it like really interesting because where you at my father, USC, getting your doctorate in education is kind of a lot different from what you were doing at James Madison, and what you were doing at George Mason as well. And I think being like disjointed and not really having like everything like line up perfectly is a great story because it's not like, oh, everything else just worked out perfectly and I ended up here and this is a such a replicable formula. Can you kind of just tell me a little bit about like how like each step like was like different and like what kind of made you pursue each major and how it allowed you to get to where you are now?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, first, life's not a straight line. And so for all of your folks that are watching that are in the same place as you, thinking about college and thinking about what they want to do long term, my first piece of advice is just to be open to adapting, open to pursuing different things. Some people are lucky enough to know what they want to be when they're 5 years old. They want to be a doctor. They want to be a lawyer. They want to be a person on Wall Street. I wasn't that way. I went to James Madison and got my undergraduate degree in environmental policy and had a little bit of a stint of energy policy. I mean, the truth is, I was just really interested in renewable energy. I was interested in electric vehicles. Now, this was before Tesla. This was before all these hybrid cars were out on the road. It was a new thing in the mid 90s when I was in college, and I was just interested in it. And so I went to school with an interest in environmental policy, and I graduated, and I got a great job at that management consulting firm, like I mentioned. And I worked in that business for a couple of years, and it wasn't as fulfilling as I had hoped it would be. My girlfriend, my fiance, my now wife of 20 some odd years, uh, was in IT, and she was doing software development and working on some really interesting challenges. And I became interested in technology early in my career and decided to go back to get a master's degree. I got it in systems engineering, IT systems engineering. And that's what really set my career up for uh, what it focused on. The latter part of my time at the first management consulting company was focused on enterprise systems, system modernization, and helping organizations transform by implementing new tools and technologies. And that was very much the focus of Chartis, the business that Nick and I grew over the years. Um, and so I would just say as a first piece of advice to folks that it's not a straight line. You may get a degree, it may not be what you think it is. You can always adapt, whether you go back to school like I did to learn something new, or you just pursue different job responsibilities that push you in the direction that you want to go. Just be open to that adaptation. I think when I met you and your father 2017, 2019, I had worked in technology for 10, 15 years at that point
Mm.
and just wasn't sure, like most middle-aged people do, just wasn't sure if that's what I wanted to be for the rest of my life. And I had a nostalgic uh, excitement about college, about higher education, about universities, and just thought, hey, I'd like to go learn more about managing organizations in an educational context. I had managed my own business, managed a consulting firm, managed people, budgets, strategy, things of that sort. And I was curious if it would apply in higher ed. Maybe I'd go work for a university like your dad does, or what I ended up doing, which is going to work for the Aspen Institute, a really large social impact nonprofit organization. And again, that was just a pivot in my career. It wasn't totally disjointed. It's not like I decided to do something that I had no experience in, but it was a different flavor.
Mhm.
And so I've always felt like the academic experiences I've had have been very formative in the person I've become. And so definitely try hard in school, definitely pick degrees that you're interested in. Um, get to know your classmates, get to know your teachers. I'm still in contact with a number of folks that I was in my undergrad program with, my graduate program with, and they've helped me throughout my career in finding new jobs and approaching programs and projects and things of that sort. And so that's a little bit more about kind of where I started and where I ended up. Hopefully, I don't have to go back to school again. I've got a bachelor's, a master's, and a doctorate. But you never know. I might end up in a space where I feel like a certification is helpful and valuable. We'll see.
So like along the way, I think probably specifically more at James Madison, were you like anticipating pivots? Were you, because I think me, I'm kind of like wanting to go into something like international relations or economics or business that's like it's easy to pivot out of that, right? Were you kind of conscious of, oh, maybe I might not like this, or this could get me to wherever, or were you kind of like flying blind and you like were able to make decisions along the way?
Yeah, I'd say probably the latter.
Mm,
You know, life has worked out really well for me. I've been very fortunate in the career I've had and the success I've had. There aren't always playbooks for these things. I can't say that I was always insightful enough to know what was next or where my career was going. Um, you know, when I was at James Madison, I was doing what most college kids do. I was going to class and was going to football games and sports and probably going out a bit more than I should. Met my wife there and just
good
having a
football
great
season.
time. And so, like, you know, I would just really encourage folks not to be overly concerned or overly pragmatic about where your career is going to go in a decade. You know, find a program that you like, find classmates that you like, have a plan post college that's 1, 2, maybe 3 years out. But thinking much beyond that, once you get into the working world, your experience is just going to completely change your mindset. The only folks that I knew that really had a plan in college were the folks that were, and friends of mine that were set on the graduate degree, right? So they were in business and they knew they were going to get their MBA. They were in some science, biology, chemistry, whatever, pre-med, and they were going to go be doctors and dentists. Those were really the only classmates and friends I had who knew where they were going to go after they graduated. The rest of us were trying to get jobs and make some money for the first times in our lives,
Mm.
and you know, just continue to be young and have fun.
And like, I think like one thing that's really interesting for me is like, the Aspen Institute. I think we can get into that a little more later, but like, what are like some of the differences in working in something like a nonprofit versus like the consulting? Like I can imagine that's a lot more corporate, right? And like, there's less like maybe personality in like the work that you do. How
Sure.
is that different from what you do now?
Yeah, so I'll describe it a couple different ways because I think for folks that might be watching that want to start a business or have a business someday, there are big differences between small companies, small organizations, big companies and organizations, and then to where you're going with your question, the difference between sort of the for-profit space and the not-for-profit space. And so when I would interview people over the course of my career, I'd always be interested in how business savvy they were. And I would ask them things like, did you ever like what was the first job you ever had? Did you ever babysit? Did you ever rake leaves, do landscaping? Did you ever set up lemonade stands? Things of that sort, right? And I think small businesses are a lot like lemonade stands. You have a
Mm,
couple of folks who are excited about what you're doing. You've got some sort of a product or service that you want to sell. You're out there on the corner trying to find customers, trying to find the right price point, trying not to go out of business. There's no processes, there's no system, there's no organizational structure. It's very entrepreneurial. It's let's go not work for someone else, work for ourselves and try to make some money. And so a lot of the businesses that I was in over the course of my career were started like that. They were small lemonade stand, landscaping type companies that didn't have a lot of structure. As my businesses grew, and you know, if you have folks that get internships with Microsoft or bigger companies, IBM's, JP Morgan Chase, you know, whatever sector you're in, the bigger your business gets, the more structured it gets. And so you get process. HR becomes a thing, budget and finance becomes a thing, corporate strategy becomes a thing. You start to hire employees. And so there's different voices in the organization. You have to be inclusive. You have to be focused on equity type concerns. And it becomes more of like a what you would expect and what you see on TV when you watch shows like Suits or Mad Men or whatever, right? It's a corporate organization. What I would say, the Aspen Institute's not too different than a big for-profit corporate organization in the way it operates and the way it's structured. We've got a lot of systems at Aspen. I think now it's over $200-300 million in assets. So it's a big organization. And it's got all the things that come with it. It's, HR concerns and budget and finance concerns. And so in that respect, like I said, with my degree programs, it's not completely different. It's just a different flavor. What I would say is that in the for-profit space, you're primarily motivated on revenues and profits, right? And so the first question you're usually asking yourself on the for-profit side is, can I make money doing this? Can I cover my costs doing this? And is there space for it to scale, whether it's going to scale locally, regionally, nationally, or internationally, right? And that's the essence of a good business plan, right? You're going to make money, and you're going to impact a community of people at large. So in the nonprofit space, it's very different. It's not so much about can we make money doing something. We apply for donor funds and grant funds, and so people do contribute in a philanthropic way to the work that we do. But sometimes the work that we do isn't profitable, right? We're spending more than the revenues that we have or the grants that we have. And so in the nonprofit space, you're not just optimizing on revenues and profits, you're optimizing on the social impact that you're having. Is the work worth doing? Is the work going to change the field that your mission is about, right? So at Aspen, I'm involved in higher education. The first question we ask about work is it going to have an impact on the field at scale? If it's not, is it going to have an impact at a lower level on an institution or on a practice that could grow and eventually impact the field? It's not until the third question that we ask, hey, can we make money doing this? Right. So we're very much focused on the social impact aspect of it at the Aspen Institute, more so than you would see in the for-profit space. There are some for-profit companies that do like B Corp things. I'm not sure if you've learned about that or any of your viewers have studied up on benefit corporations. That's the for-profits answer, where it says we want to be focused on money, but we also want to have a social good in what we do. And so often when you're looking at companies that you might want to work for, or companies you're interested in, if social impact is the thing that motivates you, I would recommend looking at corporate social responsibility plans, whether the companies are B Corps, kind of what they do as their ethos and as part of their core values.
And I think maybe those who aren't so familiar with the Aspen Institute, I think there's kind of, I mean, I think until I like talk to you about it, it's kind of like, what does the Aspen Institute really do, right?
Yeah.
Recently you guys received a large donation from Jeff Bezos. And I think it's just kind of like interesting. So if you could talk like a little bit about like
Sure.
what you guys kind of do specifically.
Yeah, absolutely. So to full transparency, I started in June, and so I haven't been there forever. Just one clarification. So we did recently receive a large contribution from the Bezos Foundation, which is actually not Jeff himself. It's family members who were early investors in Aspen and early investors in Amazon. As I understand it, Jeff was working in his garage trying to sell books online. He didn't have enough money. He went to his parents and family members and said, "Here's my vision. I need money." And they contributed. And I think as a result, some of those family members have 5-10% of Amazon. And so we at the Aspen Institute recently received, I think it was about $175 million gift from the Bezos Foundation to start the Center for Rising Generations. And that's a lot about connecting with kids across the country in different communities, different places in life. and trying to figure out ways to help the next generation in the United States pursue education, pursue economic prosperity, pursue economic mobility, and social factors. And so just a really great gift. So that's a little bit on that one. So Aspen is not a think tank per se. So like sometimes you hear about like the Brookings Institute or RAND is a big one in the DC space. Those organizations are set to really sort of do research and support policy. And in some cases, they support program and technology development. Then you have organizations like the Gates Foundation and Zuckerberg, the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative. You've got these large organizations that just give money. They're basically aggregators of funds, or they have their own funds that they give for philanthropic purposes. We sit kind of in the middle at the Aspen Institute. Our mission is to, and it's probably better said on the website, but it's all about helping folks solve some of the world's biggest issues. And we do that by bringing folks together in what we call convenings to discuss big issues. We do a lot with leadership development and leadership practices. We've got a bunch of fellowships at the Aspen Institute where we'll bring in the best and brightest in different sectors, and we'll talk about proven trends and proven solutions that we've seen work and help kind of push the dialogue forward around what they can be doing in their sectors. And then we have sort of another piece of what we do, which we've said is like enabling solutions to these big issues, which is sort of a catch-all for the things that we do. Aspen is a big umbrella type organization under which there are 50 to 60 programs that are focused in these, big world issues. And so it's a very, very cool organization. I've enjoyed working there for the last 3 months, 4 months. And for folks who are interested in the nonprofit social impact space, definitely encourage you to take a look at the organization. It's global too, for what it's worth, for your international viewers. Aspen's got offices, I think, in 8 or 9 countries. So worth taking a look at.
And like, what's your role as like a director, right? Like, what do you do like specifically within the company to like make impact or make change?
Yeah, absolutely. So at Aspen, the leadership organization looks like this. So we have in the umbrella in Aspen, we have a senior executive leadership team, and they have purview and responsibilities across all Aspen. And so that's our CEO, Dan Porterfield. We've got a CFO, Office of Institutional Advancement, things that large organizations have, strategy and so forth. Within the programs themselves, it's a more traditional nonprofit structure where we have an executive director, a managing director, and then a tier of senior team directors. So I'm one of those directors on the senior team. My responsibility is in the operations portfolio, so I'm the director of operations, and that is all things budget and finance for my organization. So looking at expected revenues, expected expenses, business development, fundraising opportunities, forecasted out 3, 6, 12 months, and just reconciling that to make sure that we, to the extent possible, cover costs for the work that we do. I also manage human capital for the organization. So that's making sure we identify, recruit, and hire the best people that we have and that we can find for the roles that we have, and then working with staff on their professional development plans so that the skills and capabilities that they come in with continue to grow when they get to Aspen. And then the third piece, which is an evolving piece, which I think was a factor in why they chose me for the position, is that we're starting to look at longer term fundraising as a key capacity that we want to have within our program. And so I'm starting to look at a strategic framework for fundraising and development, where we're looking at our renewal pipeline. So when you win work, sorry, that's a corporate word. In the corporate space, you win work. In the nonprofit space, you receive grants from generous funders. Uh, Grants have a period of performance. It might be a 1-year grant or a 2-year grant where you're committed to doing some work. When the grant approaches its end, we always want to be talking with our funders about what's next, right? We're trying to change and make big systemic changes in the world. These aren't 1-year projects, 2-year projects. They're, multi-year projects, if not generational projects. So looking at our renewals, looking at new prospects and new fundraising opportunities, we're starting to look at earned revenues, fee for service, much like in a consulting space, as well as potential membership models around some of the work that we have and the work that we've done. And then the communications cross-cutting factor of that, how can we best tell our story? How can we talk about impact? How can we get people interested and excited in the work that we do? And so that's probably the third bucket that I would have, at least for now.
And a lot of the people you work with, like I assume they come from different walks of life. Do a lot of them come from maybe like similar backgrounds to you, or like where do you see a lot of what are like kind of the commonalities between a lot of the people
Sure.
that you work with?
So looking within our program specifically, so again, it's the College Excellence Program. It's focused in higher education. We have 4 divisions. So we have operations, which is my group. We have a communications division. So their backgrounds are very much in writing, editing, public relations, marketing, so forth, social media, multi-channel engagement through communications. And then our 2 largest divisions are the work-related areas. And so we have a group that's focused on research and innovation. A lot of them come from research backgrounds. And when I say research in our space, it's quantitative and qualitative research as it pertains to student outcomes, how many folks are getting into school, into higher ed, how many transfers are happening from 2-year community colleges to 4-year institutions, how many are graduating from 4-year institutions with bachelor's degrees, what is their post graduation outcomes? Are they getting good jobs above, the living wage? Are they not? And how do we look at that? So a lot of our researchers either come from organizations or have skills and experience in looking at that type of data and institutional performance relative to those metrics. The 4th group is leadership and field engagement. And that one's kind of interesting. It's very curriculum focused. And it's because we run fellowships for community college presidents, rising presidents, and things of that sort. And so we actually have like former teachers, both from higher ed as well as from K to 12 in the US context. Was chatting with an employee earlier today. She was a 2nd grade teacher for 4 years and decided she didn't really want to do that anymore and came to work for us. She's really good with curriculum design. And so that group has folks from all sorts of different backgrounds, which is pretty exciting. The thing I would say is common across everyone, and you see this in the nonprofit space specifically, is we're all bought in on what we're trying to do, right? There's an affinity for the mission of the organization, not just Aspen, but the College Excellence Program as well, and what we're trying to change in the field and the ways that we're going about doing it.
And you talk about kind of like the mission for that. I think I kind of want to circle back a little bit to Chartis, and like initially you guys started by like selling to one company, but like how did you kind of grow it from just that to so much more than that, than to where you guys were when you sold the company in 2023, I think?
So so Nick is still there. So I exited the end of 2022. But yeah, your question's a good one. And I shared some of this with you over lunch when we met. I think when you start a small business, and some of your viewers might be interested in this, I mean, there are a couple of key questions. Do you want to sell a product of some sort? Do you want to sell a service, like a professional service of some sort? Um, these days, and more so in the technology space, there's software as a service. Like there might be something that you're selling subscriptions and licensing for that isn't, an iPhone or AirPods or whatever. And so I think when we started, we knew that we wanted to sell consulting services. Nick was working with a government customer and I was working with a government customer. And to be fair, like the goal was not to go out of business, right? It was, this is better than working for IBM. Let's not mess it up. We had a great customer relationship. And so the goal was not to go out of business. And that's an important thing as well. Like to some of your viewers who might be thinking they should start a business like right out of college, if you're going to do something in the services space, it's really helpful to work in the industry for a little while so that you build a network, specifically a network of clients. And so we didn't have to start with venture capital money or, money really put into the company. Nick had a consulting engagement from day one. I had a consulting engagement from day one. So from day one of the company through the time I left, we were always cash flow positive. We were always profitable, which isn't the case if you're going to build a product from scratch. You got to put money into that.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, the first couple months, the first year or two was let's not go out of business. And then one of the strategies that we always found successful is that when you've got a good customer, the question is, what else can you do for them? Right. And so we were doing some basic work for our customers and we started to pitch other ideas. Today we're doing X. We know some people that can do Y. You need Y. If you like what we do for X, and we'll do it for Y as well, right? And so specifically, I was helping manage a big technology project, and we needed someone who had more financial acumen. And so I knew a guy who had a financial background that did great work, hired him on, put him on the contract. We needed someone who knew more about software and software licensing. I knew a guy, found him, brought him in, put him on the contract, right? And so we just scaled slowly and steadily based on that type of one customer relationship. What else can we do for you? After a while of doing that, you have a really broad portfolio of work that we then started taking to other clients. Hey, we're doing this for this client over here, this government customer. We can do it for you. And I would say between 2009 and 2012, we went from 2 people to maybe 12 people. So very slow and steady, always profitable. And then we won some really large contracts supporting the government. We got a little bit more focused in mission critical technologies and doing work on products that supported the mission of the organizations that we supported. And yeah, won a contract that was a nationwide program. And that led to winning more programs that were nationwide. And, we went from a dozen folks to 100+ folks in a couple of years. And, when you're a small business owner, you pat yourself on the back a lot, but we got great recognition. We were on the Washington Technologies Fast 50 twice. So 50 fastest growing technology companies in the US. We were on the Inc. 5000 5 years in a row for, the most successful private companies in the country. And a lot of that was just based on being one, good doers of work, right? Being good at what we do. Number two, taking care of our customers and ensuring that we had the best customer relationships possible. And three, being thoughtful in where we wanted to take the business longer term. And went from the two of us to something I was able to leave happy with. So it was a great experience.
Well, we don't really have too much time left, but I think that kind of like sums it up great, like the self-advocacy of you putting yourself out there and being able to become a successful business owner. So thank you so much for your time, Brian. We really appreciate you being here, and I hope you enjoyed your time here as well.